welcome everybody back to another episode of Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers. I'm here today with Coach Alex Scott from Ashley High School in Wilmington, North Carolina. Welcome, Coach.
Hey, buddy. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, we appreciate you coming on here and talk a little defense with us. Wilmington, I've driven through there one time. Matter of fact, we stopped at East Carolina. We have this stadium thing with me and my two sons. And we try to see as many of the Division I stadiums as we can. I think we're right around 73, I think is our current number. So we had a chance to stop in there at East Carolina. We've got to go in. We snuck into the stadium. Don't tell nobody. I don't want, try to keep my criminal record clean. But we snuck into the stadium. Met a former player was there for the same thing. Like he wasn't there for the same reason, but he was in the stadium, and we talked to him for about 5 minutes. So been in the area. So, gosh, man, you coach in a great place.
Man, it's beautiful down here. I've lived here most of my life. I went to school at Appalachian. Got
another great stadium. And by the way, if I were to rank all the campuses, that's got to be one of the top 5 most beautiful campuses
absolutely.
I've ever been on.
Probably in the entire country.
Right.
But yeah, I got my teaching license from East Carolina. I've been an East Carolina fan my whole life. So I've been to Dowdy Ficklin a lot. But yeah, coached here for a little while, and I've coached in the mountains, coached basically from end to end in the state, and so it's been a whirlwind. Been fun though.
It's a great state. I got family that lives over in Concord, or actually Cheryl's Ford. She lives in. They were going to live in Concord, but they moved to Cheryl's Ford right there off Lake Norman. So I've spent some time there with my family there. So it is an absolutely beautiful state. And how is it different? Coaching, is there a difference from coaching over on the west side of the state than it is the east side?
I'm going to tell you this: the biggest difference is just the amount of enthusiasm that you get from a lot of these small towns. You get to some of these places and it's football is the only thing, man. And in the western part of the state, you see that more so readily than the eastern part of our state. But
right.
There's still some real good rivalries down east, and one that I've been involved in heavily. So,
well, I believe it. It's that way in Ohio. If you go to some of the small, we have 7 divisions in Ohio. 1's the top, 7's the lowest. Hey, I tell you what, you'll see more people at a Division 7 game sometimes than you will at the Division 1 games. And just because those towns, Friday nights, shut off the lights, we're going over to the next town over, man, and it's on. There's a story of one of the small towns, like they would have a sellout, and they're 50-50. The winner's portion was between $5,000 and $10,000. That's the winner's portion, not splitting it.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. Small school football, I think, is a great thing. All right, Coach. So you're from you're in North Carolina. So here in Ohio, COVID affected us. It changed our schedule around a little bit. Instead of playing 10, we played 6, and everybody got in the playoffs. First time they've ever allowed that to happen. But once you got knocked out, you could make up some games if you chose to. How did COVID affect you guys in North Carolina this fall?
Yeah, so they kind of canceled our season, about a week before it started, 2 weeks before official practice started, I guess. We have been able to kind of work out with the kids and lift weights and do very limited one-on-one passing work. You can't make contact, so we can't do handoffs. We can't work fits or anything like that with the defense. And we've been doing that since July.
Right. Wow.
But now we've got volleyball started back, cross-country basketball started back, so hopefully we'll kind of get a little bit, we've got volleyballs canceling games and it's only a conference schedule. So everything's just been pushed back, and now we're into February is our start date. So we're kind of waiting to see, when we come back, like I said, January, we're starting lacrosse right away. So we'll see how lacrosse goes. That's going to be a big barometer.
Well, yeah. And, I would be interesting to talk to these states that didn't get to do fall football. And you talk to people like Ohio who did, and Indiana who did, and all these other states that did. I know in Ohio, there was not one confirmed case of player-to-player, transmission. One of our big rivals, Fairborn, they lost 4 games because of contact tracing, but it wasn't because of that. They got it from another team. The one first game they missed was weeks 3 and 4 because they played against somebody who tested positive week 2. So they were out, for the 14 days and such. So, I hope you guys get a season in. My son actually is a redshirt freshman at Georgetown College in Kentucky. The NAIA didn't – well, some of the schools chose not to play in the fall. So they're going to try to play in February too. He goes, Dad, I'm playing spring ball. He told me February 19th. I'm like, hey, buddy, Georgetown's not that far south of Ohio. So I'm pretty sure you're not that much warmer. So spring is going to be a loose term, I think, for some schools.
For some of us, yeah.
Right.
Not so much for me, but yeah, it'll probably be like 55 in February here.
55, man. Don't tell me those things. Our high Christmas day, I think, is 18. Like 18.
Yeah, it's gonna be 67 here tomorrow. So.
Oh man, good for you guys. Well, I'm glad you're getting to do some things, and Coach, I hope you guys get to play this spring and get a season in. And I think you're right.
Absolutely.
If lacrosse can make it, and this is why I think the outdoor sports are in better shape for this, is it's outdoor.
Yeah.
And lacrosse is one of those sports that's naturally you're spread out. Football really is, people are like, oh, there's so much contact. It's not as much as people think.
Yeah, really.
I think if you guys can make it through lacrosse, you'll play football. I told our state association guy, I said, hey, listen, we played football, didn't have any contact, any transmission between teams. I said, you guys right now are wrestling. I said, if wrestling finishes this winter, I said, we're playing lacrosse, Bo. I don't care what else happens. We're playing lacrosse in the spring. I already lost one season. Don't want to lose another. All right, Coach. So, hey, you talked about defending the wing tee, and I'll be honest, defending the wing tee is one of those things. For us here in Ohio, we see a lot of wing tee, but we see different versions of it. We see under the center. We see the diehard chicken bones and incense under the center. We're running buck, trap, waggle, right? We'll see those guys. And then we'll see the guys that are running the jet belly series. And now everybody's running the down power series. And now we're starting to get those guys into the shotgun. And now it does take away some of the stuff from them, but it opens up some other parts for them. So when you guys see wing tee, are you kind of seeing the whole gamut of things, or what are you guys seeing?
Yeah, so to start with a little backstory of what we got. The team I was coaching for, they've been playing. It's their rivalry, and Wallace has run the wing tee for 50 years.
Right.
That's their deal. They were 4-time state champions with it, and county rival and conference rival. So we had to figure out a way to stop it. And they would run it under center. They were getting a little bit out of gun when we changed this over and kind of forced them to do that more to try to get us out of the box. But we were trying to find a way to stop it, and we found a bit crazy with the nose is really what got it for us.
Right. All right. So how do you start off defending the wing tee?
So we're going to set our strength to the tight end wing, and you're talking about just true wing tee under the center. And Wallace was a very big bug team, trap team. So that was their bread and butter. Hit you with their speed, and they're going to hit you up the gut, just like every wing tee team does. But so we had to come up with an answer for their buck first off, and so we knew that control, and they were sending their tight end down, and so we knew that controlling that tight end to get him off the linebacker was going to be the key thing to this. So that's where we started this at. We brought down an outside linebacker to play that tight end. And his whole job is you're going to jam this tight end until he doesn't want to move. Like, push him into the pile, just drive him back into that inside gap the entire night. Don't let him move. So that's his whole job. And then he's got the first level of contain out there against because he's pressing that guy down into the hole. You know?
Right. Now, I will tell you this. Those guys that are the buck. That are the buck aficionados. We faced a guy at Miamisburg. Program wasn't winning a whole lot at the time. He came in and had them regional finalists within 2 or 3 years. And they were just, now their strong side guard is now the starting center at Ohio State. So that kind of helps when you got those guys blocking. Those guys. But still, even when he left, they were still a handful to deal with because they were so good at running the buck, and then obviously the trap. But what do your linebackers do to help with the buck?
So that's the number one thing that we talk about with getting that guy. He's going to play head up on that tight end and jam down because that's going to allow our strong side linebacker not to get blocked on that buck because that's usually that wing or that tight end's going down the block.
Yep.
So and then the next thing I got my defensive end. He's in a 4-eye right there.
Oh, offensive coordinators say 4 eyes. I don't care what offense it is.
I agree. But this is your strongest defensive end. He's going to play that 4-eye right there.
Right.
So your strong side linebacker basically has that outside D gap. And he's lined up. You can line him up anywhere on that outside, just as long as he's got just to give you that number advantage over there.
Right.
But
linebacker is the backside linebacker responsible for the trap.
Right. So he'll be trap guy, but we also have our nose as the trap guy too.
Right.
And that's the next step because we flexed our nose. So what we did was we had him in a 1. So inside that 4-eye, you go down to a 1 as the nose. So now I've got my nose. He's going to be in a strong shade, and I'm going to back him up 2.5 yards off the ball.
Okay.
And the reason why we do that is because that center is going to have to block back on that man for trap if they want to run trap to the other side. Right. And the reason we line them up in the 1 is because that A gap is where they want to run trap anyway, to strong side A gap. So it forces them to change their trap to the backside and run it wonky. Which Wallace did on us when we started doing this because we had a 3 on the backside and a 5.
Right.
So that 3 and the 5 helped our belly series. So they don't like running. They have to cross block the 3 and the 5.
Right. So I'm drawing just Coach. See, I take notes as I'm going along here. So I'm drawing this up. So you got.
I can kind of draw it up a little bit if you want me to.
You're okay. So you got a 4-eye and a 1 that's 2.5 off, right?
Yep.
A 3 and a 5 on the backside. Yep. Okay, and your 1 linebacker, what's he on the tight end? Is he head up again?
Yeah, the linebacker is going to be we usually play him a 31. So just outside that guard, and then he plays he'll play that front side B gap all the way out to D gap.
Okay.
The backside linebacker is going to take that A gap to scraping over the top.
Right. Now, and who did you have playing on the tight end again, Coach?
That's just an outside linebacker we dropped down.
Okay. And what's his technique? Is he outside shade or head up?
No, he's head up tight end.
Okay. Man. Okay. So then where's your corner?
So the corner is going to be probably 4 or 5 yards, 5x5 out there off the wing.
Yep.
And then we're going to have a free safety over the top of the tight end, about 10, 11 yards.
And on the backside, you got your corner.
Backside, I got a nickel drop about he's probably 4x4 off, and then corners matched up on that backside receiver.
Okay, I'm with you. Now, when this team is running wing T, were they traditional flat backs, or did they have that slot back with the fullback?
Usually they were flat backs.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, that does limit what they can do because now they can only do, there's only so much you can do. The play that we would get beat on back there is how did you did they run dive on the short side?
They would, yeah.
Okay, so how did you deal with dive?
So dive, we just told that linebacker you got to have it.
Okay.
You're gonna get that. It's just that hole's gonna open up, and you gotta be there. And our free safety, he's got to be that guy that if he sees that dive too, because he's got to see that motion, that he's got to come fill. He's
right.
If he, that's his big thing. Like if you don't see a pull, like look for something up the middle,
right.
until proven otherwise.
Right.
But yeah, and they would run some jet every once in a while, but it's not the word. Now, when they would line up in the stack with the wing out there.
Yep. Okay.
Jet.
So when they were obviously Buck Trap Waggle was their first series. Were they Belly as their second series? Was Belly their second series?
Belly was their second series.
Okay.
And, that's why we put that 3 and that 5 back there, because we didn't want them to. We wanted to have to X block that.
Right.
It's a sloppier block usually for the wing tee.
It's a lot harder for that guard to get around the tackle because that tackle has to come first.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, your end is as that tackle squeezes down on that down block, he's squeezing with him, right?
Yeah, we're teaching that end is take your first step and get your hand on the V of his neck.
Yep.
And then to take if he's down block, man, you're taking and stiff arming him down into his guard at that point. Make them run into each other, and then I've got a backer out here to back him up. I've got the 3 technique is kind of feeling that he's getting that block out, so he's sitting there in that hole, kind of just clogging space.
Right. Okay. So the next thing they're going to probably do is they're going to try unbalanced on you.
Yep.
So let's start with the split end over. So they bring the split end over to the tight end wing side.
Yep.
How does that change? Does it change anything what you do? Your corner comes out.
So the only thing that I would do with that is I took our corner, the corner that was matched up on him, I just moved him all the way across.
Okay, so you ran the corners. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a sound adjustment. Did it change if they would go tackle over and leave the tight end on the nub side?
They did that maybe once or twice, but when we got them into this, they started getting into their gun stuff more.
Right.
To try to take us out of it that way and have an extra receiver out. So with that, you kind of have to give up your tight end with your outside linebacker and kind of bump him out, to help so he can help with anything on that.
Right. Well, it does. Once you start making them do things like that, where then now you're starting to win the battle actually, because I believe this is the Matt Bartley theory of defending the wing tee. If you make them start doing things other than what they normally do, they haven't practiced it as much, because if they're a true buck trap waggle team, they're spending a lot of time, because that's a very technique oriented offense. It's the thing I picked up this year, or this since COVID and me listening to all these things, is it's a very expensive play. I'm like, what do you mean expensive? And then after I thought about it, I'm like, oh, it does. Time wise, it is expensive, because you got to spend a lot of time on how are you going to truly go 1, 2, 3 deep with the guard and then him run downhill, or are you just going to have everybody skip pull and do it that way? If you skip pull, it's not as expensive, but I don't think it's nearly an effective play.
I don't think so either. And they were just so good at it. And that's the thing, Wallace and they've run that thing for 50 years. They had I played against them when I was in Pee Wee and they were running wing tee. You know what I mean? They're Pee Wees learning trap and buck,
Right.
And they ran it in both their feeder middle schools. So
right. Well,
they got it set up. There's a reason they've got 7 of those state championships.
Heck yeah. I mean, hey, if it works, don't fix it if it ain't broke, man.
Absolutely.
All right. So how much stunning do you do against a wing tee team?
Hardly any.
Hardly any.
I mean, it's, that's the one thing that we didn't do a lot of anyway, just because we wanted to play as soundly as possible. You know, our kids really bought into it a lot of times, you know, because we'd give them a couple plays a game, you know, and again, like you said, it doesn't hurt to have athletes. We had some athletes, you know, so a lot of the games we were ahead. We could do a little bit. We could practice a little bit of stunts, you know, if we needed it. But you know, when we were a 1A team and we played in a small 1A county and a small 1A area, you know, you see a lot of we had like spinner back T one year we had to face. You know, it wasn't very good, but we had to face it nonetheless. So you just see a lot of wing T and a lot of just, you know, some triple option like stuff where you have to just be simple and be very sound. So, you know, we didn't get into a lot of pressure, you know, but on third down, we would do a little bit, you know, we'd probably bring the corner and drop the outside linebacker into coverage, you know, just to make them, you know, because there's only so many people who could catch a pass on a wing T offense,
right?
You know, tight end and the receiver, basically.
Right. Okay, what else did you do? Like, so after you figure out there the Buck series, you get that stuff taken care of. What's the next thing you do to prepare for them?
So as far as preparing for them, you know, that's the one thing that we preach all the time is just being sound. You know, all 11 guys have to do their job, and you have to swarm to the football. You know, because if there's anything if you get out on Buck series, you got blockers with you. You know, they're not going to stop running with that ball. You can't. Your defense has to get to the ball. But as far as preparing for them, you know, we always said, you know, you got to stop Buck, you got to stop trap, you got to stop belly, and we can probably run down most of the rest of it.
Right.
So,
because in all honesty, you get outside of those threes for a lot of those teams, they're not real proficient at it because they don't spend time on it.
Yeah, and we kind of forced them to get really good at jet. You know what I mean? Because by the time we were done, that was really the only thing they had against us was they would take and get into their gun and go twins on that backside, and then they'd hit jet either with that slot coming either way. You know,
right?
They could take their wing and just run a wide or a wide sweep with them. You know, it's just that we forced them to get good at trying to get outside of it.
No,
we weren't letting them run inside.
Right, and that's, you know, and they're running sideways now. They don't have that vertical cut like they do in the Buck, which is always the scariest part for me. I'm like, man, once he puts that foot in the ground and he starts running vertical, I'm like, please be in your spot. Please be in your spot. Because
you just know it's bad when he makes a cut back into the crowd.
Right, you're like, oh, this is going to be bad. I'm like, no, I don't want to watch, right? Okay, so here's the other problem we have when we're defending wing T teams. How do you prep the scout team? Because I tell you what, for somebody who's seen the wing T as long as I have, and I know how it works, getting our scout guys to run it the right way we were a triple option offense, and I can't even imagine trying to be a scout team that all they do is zone block everything. Like,
oh my God!
And how to get to the scout team offensive line to run Buck properly? Is there anything you do to prep those guys better?
So we ran into that problem last year. It was the first time I really had it because most of the time we've been a triple option, you know, flex bone kind of team. And but we ran into it last year where this was my first year at this school. We're a zone blocking RPO guy kind of team. Right. And then I'm sitting over there like, man, these guys don't know how to pull. We're supposed to show these guys Buck sweep, you know. So it's an interesting week to get them prepared, to say the least. But we kind of got our offensive line coach now. He's you know, every once in a while he'll show him how to pull under the chute or something.
Right.
Give him a little bit.
It's, you know, I think preparing for the wing T teams, you almost have to prepare for them a triple option team, you got to start sprinkling a little bit in
Absolutely.
before you get to that week. Because if you get to week 8 and you haven't practiced any wing tee stuff, you are going to struggle. Now, when I was doing it, I would do it in individual for my reads. And, you know, we wouldn't do it as much for a whole defense, but I would do it a little bit, you know, 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, the week before, and then by the week of, we're just going in. But, you know, we don't see the traditional under the center stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see any next year. You know, with us being we saw some this year, and we saw a team week 1 that was under center. So it helped us for our playoff game where we had to go back, and it was a lot better. But the team week 1 wasn't a buck team. They were a belly down team. And and that's, you know, that was a lot easier. And then week 7, the first round of the playoffs, we saw a jet belly team. And for our guys, we're like, oh, please, we've already seen belly 1,000 times because of week 1. We're going to jump in on it. So I think the familiarity of it does help you a little bit.
Absolutely.
You do anything special with your defensive line preparing for them?
So that's the one thing that is tough is, you know, normally I like to play a 2-eye with that backside nose, but having him flex up to that 1, that's probably the toughest thing. But as far as everybody else, you know, their technique pretty much is going to stay the same for us. You know, if you get that down, you're pressing in. You know, if you beat the reach. But that nose just has to know, like, if I see that down block come at me, you know, I've got to fight across face. And that's why we flex him, to get him the ability to fight across the face so he can just sit in that A gap if he gets that, to kind of take away the trap if necessary. But, you know, as far as the D-line, like, their technique just stays the same. I mean, it's kind of boring.
But if they're good at it, it's not boring.
Right.
You make a lot of plays at the defensive line if your technique is right.
That's why I tell the kids all the time. I'm like, man, you know, it might be boring now, but it's not boring when you're up 30 on the Friday night.
Yeah, when you're up 30, you've had, you know, 5 tackles for loss. You've had 2 sacks because they've tried to run waggle twice. You know, absolutely, like, all that's true. So, now, okay, so now that everybody's starting to get into this gun wing tee stuff, and I think, in all honesty, I think that the gun wing tee is going to be where people are going because of it unloads the box, like you talked about. It unloads the box a little. It forces you to unload the box. I think the option teams are going to be starting to do the same thing. You've already started to see, you know, we've been a triple option team for 4 years.
Right.
But we were traditional under the center, double slot, or tight end wing slot. You know, triple option,
now, huh?
right? We were like Navy and Army, but now even those guys have started to get out of those traditional sets, and they're starting to be in shotgun. So,
absolutely.
How is the wing tee, the shotgun wing tee? Does it make you prepare different?
So, you know, there's certain things that you can kind of carry over because they're still going to try to run buck at you. They're still going to try to run belly at you, though, because here's the way that we see them change their belly on us is just the quarterback's going to take that snap and then he's just going to step over, you know. So they're going to run that belly to it. You know, they're going to run. Wallace ran quarterback trap against us, you know. So they kind of keep their similar pattern. The only thing that they did was they kind of forced us whenever they would move that slot receiver to one side or the other, how we align, you know. So they're taking, just like you said, people out of the box, and that's where they start getting you. They can hit you with some speed on like a buck sweep when you have to take your corner away to go defend the receiver, you know.
Right.
But it until they can get a quarterback that can throw the ball and make decisions out of the wing tee, it's, you know, you can't really, it doesn't change the way you prepare. But when they get that quarterback that can throw the ball, pray that he has a bad game.
Yeah, or that he can't read it as well, throwing it. Like sometimes he's got to throw it to us a little bit.
Yeah.
We see that. We actually see a team that is shotgun wing T, and the one that's driving me nuts right now is I tell my guys, read the guards, because fat kids don't run places without reason.
Exactly.
And they were running buck, and he's right in the buck. There goes the guard, and my linebacker says, well, there's buck sweep. I'm running it because they're not running trap. And the quarterback took it and ran right where my linebacker just vacated. And he gained like 15 yards. And we gave, it was like 2nd and 20 or something because we had a holding penalty on first down. And I was like, well, there goes that theory. I told him, nope, if the back crosses your face and that guard's going, you got to wait. And now they're even getting to the point where they're running the buck sweep fake now, and they're pulling the quarterback. They're bringing it's quarterback counter, guard tackle counter coming back at you, and now he's off the thing. So I got a couple of buddies who are great offensive coordinators. So I said, if you offensive guys would quit cheating, defensive coordinators could get a little bit more sleep at night.
We've kind of changed our linebacker read because of that. It's similar. Like we were saying, you're reading the guards. Like that's the only thing you're doing. And so now they read the first 2 steps basically of the running back flow, and then pick up the guard to that side.
Right.
Just the same technique everybody teaches, but we went from straight reading the guards to, all right, we're going to give you a cross.
We did, and that's what we ended up doing too. If that guard takes 2 steps to his right, read that right guard, and he's going to tell you what the play is.
Yeah.
Now the hope is, the quarterback still pulls it on a read. Hey, he gets us. We hope that we can get an outside linebacker to, hey, look, dude, you can't just go taking off because, whatever happened out there. You still got to be an in-the-box player and help us out a little bit.
Yeah, that's the tough thing with those outside linebackers. But if like we said, we just rep, and hopefully they'll pick it up.
and I think it is. I think that is the key. I think repping is the key. I think, wing T guys have that if-then chart. Now, some of them have it on their sheet with them. It's on that little 3x5 card. They got all their plays on the one side, and on the back side's their if-then chart. But some of them just have the if-then chart in their head. It's like, okay, so if this guy's making the tackle on this play, this is the answer.
Right.
And they're always ahead of you. Like I told you about the one guy that did it, I could tell you we knew it was coming, and it was still hard to stop. If he got the ball on an opening kickoff and it was on a hash, he was going to put in an unbalanced formation into the boundary and run buck sweep that way. We knew it was coming. He wanted to see how we were going to adjust. And what we tried to do is we tried not to be the same look each time he was unbalanced. One time we'd slide a guy. The next time we'd leave everybody out and bring an extra guy down in the box the other way. And it did help us out a little bit. I mean, he had to kick a field goal. He was vastly better than us. And he had to kick a field goal as time expired to beat us by 1 or 2. I don't remember. It was 1 or 2 that he beat us by. And it was just one of those things that I think if you're facing a wing T, you've got to know what you're doing. Your kids got to know what you're doing. And you have to be willing to make some slight adjustments that don't deal with your kids' techniques as much.
Yeah, that's the big thing. The last thing that they got me with, this was, I guess, 2019. I saw this. One of our bigger wing T teams that we played, they were starting to run out of their gun, buck sweep RPO, and catching that outside linebacker every time. So
right. Well, Coach, is there anything else you do to prep for the wing T?
I mean, we generally, we'll probably see it 4 times a year, so we kind of sprinkle it in, as often as we can. But out of the ordinary, not as much. It's like I said, just because we see it every year, it really takes us out of our ordinary to prepare for a spread team these days.
Well, yeah, I was getting ready to say that. So for us, seeing a wing T team takes a lot of prep because we don't see it. It's a one-off. You were talking about quarterback trap. So we actually have 2 wing T teams. One of them's an under the center team. The other one's the shotgun team. But the under the center team would go empty, and they'd be tight end wing, fullback as another wing, and then slot receiver, split end on the other side, and they'd run jet either way. And then what they did was they ran jet motion, and the quarterback turned around, faked the trap, and they ran or faked the jet. They ran quarterback trap for like a 60-yard touchdown. Yeah. I'm like, how do you you can't that's unfair. You can't prep the kid for that. You don't know what's coming. They ran for 2 touchdowns on that and almost had a third. I'm like, I'm glad that wasn't me because I'd have lost my mind. Like the first one, okay, you got us. The second one, like, come on, fellas. And the third one, I'm like, what are we doing down there? So you prepping for a spread team. So you see 4 wing T teams. What's the next most offense that you see?
Oh man, we see. I guess we probably see a mix of like the triple. We've had a little bit of veer. This is we're 1A ball,
right?
And people don't want to throw it. A lot of these teams hadn't changed their offense in dang 40 years, so because their head coach probably be run out of town if he changed it.
I understand that. We've seen some of those things around here, or it's even worse. Like when you've done that for so long and it's been successful, and you come in and you change it, and you're not successful. Oh yeah. They try to run you out of town. Now, if you come in and you change it and you're still successful, they'll be like, okay, maybe this will work. We'll give it a year. Let's see what happens. But at the first chance of it not accepting, not being as successful, they'll usually change it.
Third round or better, huh?
Right, absolutely. Third round or better. You got to be, for us, my high school that I'm working at, we just made the playoffs for the first time 2 years ago because nobody, it was a point system and how you get in. Not everybody gets in the playoffs. So, it was hard. We finished just outside of the qualifying so many times. And for us to finally get in and, we were 9-1 and we were the 4th seed in our region based on how, how you get seeded and stuff. So it's a little crazy.
We've been the first seed in the playoffs and played a 0-11 team before. So.
Oh man, no. And now we're talking about maybe expanding to 6. We were expanding to 12 this upcoming 2021 football year. We're going to expand to 12. But now they're talking because there was so much excitement over having everybody in that they're talking about maybe expanding to 16 teams and the 1 through 4 seeds not getting a bye like they were hoping. Because that was the biggest complaint from those guys. Like, I don't want to take a bye. And I'm like, well, you're saying that now, but if your starting tailback gets hurt and he needs a week of rest, you wouldn't be like, hey, that bye's a great thing.
Yeah.
All right, Coach, so it's that time in the show to talk about Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers. So who's the best Gamewrecker you've either coached or played with?
So probably the guy that I played with, man. His name was Juan Quintanilla. He was just all over the field. He was our middle linebacker on my high school team. And I'll never forget, man. We were 7-0, and the team we were playing was 6-0, and it was for the first place in the conference. And he made a tackle on our sideline, and the kid's helmet fell off, and it kind of slipped into a headlock in his hands. And he just walked that thing right over to our bench and sat on our bench. Ref threw a 15-yarder on him.
All right.
But yeah, he was all out in every game, man. He went on to play at East Carolina. So
okay.
Big time guy.
All right, so let's talk about the best Slobberknocker hit. Is that the biggest hit you've ever seen, or have you seen one bigger?
No, so I've seen one bigger, and that was the year that we won the state championship. And it was actually against one of the teams that we do the wing T shift for. We were playing at our county rival, and it was their first conference game of the year, and they like to run this little bubble screen when they get into their shotgun stuff.
Okay.
And they ran it, and man, my middle linebacker read it perfect, and he just dropped the kid. I mean, it was sumo slam, and I swear to you, like, that turned the tide of the game, and I swear that tackle is the reason why we won the state championship, even though it was like the third game of the year.
Right? No, hey, it could be a tone setter. Everybody's like, hey, it's time to get on the bus. Let's roll, right?
Awesome. And that was it, man.
Awesome. All right, Coach. So now it's time for Bring in the House. 5 rapid-fire questions. First response is all we need. Which is the better defensive front of all time? The fearsome foursome of the LA Rams or the steel curtain for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I got to go Steelers.
Oh, God. Okay, who's the better NFL QB, Drew Brees or Peyton Manning?
Oh, man, that's tough. Oh, man. My wife's a New Orleans Saints fan. I got to go Brees.
Hey, look, she won't probably listen to this show. It'll be all right. You can say Peyton Manning. I wouldn't have told on her. All right, what's the best football book you own?
Oh, man, I just picked up Wing T RPOs from Kenny Simpson.
Okay.
And I'm enjoying that right now.
Okay. Doing a little scouting, doing a little study of the enemy. I like that.
Absolutely, man. It's a fun little read to see what they're doing to us.
Okay. Favorite TV show right now?
Ooh, favorite TV show right now. His Dark Material on HBO.
Okay. Okay. All right. Now here's a tough one. Carolina-style barbecue or seafood?
Ooh, barbecue all the way.
Oh, really? I thought maybe I would get you because you're right there on the coast. That like maybe he'll take the seafood, get a little surf in there, be all right. Hey, Coach.
I do love oysters, you know.
Hey,
so.
but hey, now listen to me. I love me some Carolina barbecue too because that's some good stuff. Hey, I make a trip down south just for some of that stuff.
Well, I got some recommendations if you ever come on down.
I'm the shameless plug here. We went to, I think it's like King's Barbecue in Charlotte. Oh man, that barbecue was and their especially like sun drop drink or whatever that was. Holy cow! I got to get up out of here before I weigh 1,000 pounds, man, because I'm just going to keep stuff in my face. Coach, I appreciate you coming on tonight. This was awesome. Picked up some things for sure. You know, I see the Wing T twice a year. I definitely picked up some things of things I'm going to jot down here and say, hey, look at doing things like this next year. So, hey, Coach, I appreciate it, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, man. It was fun, man. I had a good time.
All right. Hey, guys, appreciate you stopping in for another episode of Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers. We'll catch you next time.